Welcome to a play-by-play review. I'm your host Henry, and Week 6 is in the books for the NFL, and I have stopped trying to make sense of what's going on in the season. It's just ridiculous. I mean, the AFC looks like it's back in 2007. The NFC is just I don't even know anymore. I've stopped trying. Um, in this week, the Vikings and Texans were the only two teams on a bye. I'm a little surprised that, I know it's week 6, and I say it's early, but it's already like a third of the way through the season. But only two teams are on a bye this week, which is a little surprising. But I mean, it's kind of nice. It just meant more football games. Although they did another Monday night doubleheader, which I don't understand why they do that. I'm sort of okay with them doing it for like the first night or like the first week because I think they usually do that for week 1. Sometimes they might not have done it this year, but anyway, it's like why in week 6? It's just throw it in the like 425 slot when there was only 3 games this week. I don't understand. Um, yeah, it was. I still don't know why we have Monday night doubleheaders ever. Period. It's just not fun. Um, Also, this week there was a ton of turnovers, especially interceptions. This is a very kind of sloppy week overall. Just like it was cursed. I'll say that it was very cursed. Nothing seemed to be correct about this week. That's for sure. So hop right in with the Thursday night game, which was I'm going to start off very happy in this episode. I'm going to end very sad this episode as a Washington Commanders fan. So the Philadelphia Eagles coming off their first loss of the season, going into New York, technically New Jersey, to play the Giants in an NFC East divisional matchup. Pretty classic rivalry matchup at that. Giants were 1-4 coming to this game. Eagles were the opposite at 4-1. And I think the Eagles scored a field goal to start this game, I'm pretty sure. And then the Giants scored 2 straight touchdowns in the opening quarter and just kind of never looked back. The Giants won 34-17 in a pretty big upset. And in one where they just looked like the better team on every level. I mean, special teams, it's like you could probably say they're both kind of around the same, but like offensively, the Giants were significantly better, and defensively, it's the same story. Like it was so strange watching the start of this game where like the first 2 plays, the Eagles got the ball first. First 2 plays were Saquon Barkley going for like a combined 30 yards on the ground, and it's like, oh hey, the Eagles know how to run the football again. This like, why haven't they been doing this before? And then they went to the passing attack, which didn't get much. Brought in AJ Dillon, who was the backup running back, which didn't get much either. Stalled out and kicked a field goal. So it's like you have Saquon Barkley. He's clearly running well. Why did you just immediately go away from him? I don't understand. Jalen Carter was also not playing for the Eagles. He had a late injury pop up. I forget exactly. It might have was like an ankle or a hamstring or something like that. And given that it was MetLife, they elected not to play him to avoid any long-term damage or like any sort of chance of a long-term injury, which I totally get. MetLife is cursed. But it was clear that his presence was lacking, or like the Eagles' defense was lacking without his presence on their defensive line, and they were really struggling to both get pressure and also stop the run. This is Tyrone Tracy was back after missing a couple games, but this was the Cam Scatabo show. He was going crazy this game. 19 carries, 98 yards, and 3 total touchdowns. And that's also not to discount Jackson Dart, who also had a pretty solid game. Again, it wasn't like super flashy, more game manager than like gunslinger, but he played well and really diced up the Eagles defense with like his top receiver was like Wandale Robinson and Lil Jordan Humphrey, who just got activated from the practice squad that night, which like it's kind of crazy. I know Quinyon Mitchell also went down early with I think a hamstring injury, which certainly didn't help the Eagles. Secondary was really rough this game. Kaylee Ringo and Adoree Jackson, their backup cornerbacks, were just getting cooked the entire time, which was fun for me to watch. I was really enjoying it. But yeah, it was really just every level. The Eagles defense was just failing consistently. Zach Bond had a pretty rough game. He was getting just bullied by Scattaboo the whole time. And this is just top to bottom domination on the offensive side for the Giants. And then on the defensive side, they were playing well. I mean, after those first couple runs, Barkley, I mean, the Eagles didn't really utilize him too much, but when they did, their Giants defense was stuffing them a good bit. Their pass rush was getting home. I know the Eagles were dealing with offensive line injuries and just a lot of underperformance as well. And so they were just really struggling to, the Eagles were struggling to pass the ball reliably. Dallas Goedert was really the only guy who was pretty reliable. He went 9 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown. Um, and yeah, it was kind of crazy to watch because Jalen Hurts, I mean, he was efficient on like on paper in like the first half where like he was completing a lot of his passes, but overall he did not look very good. Like he was kind of dinking and dunking and not really pushing the ball downfield reliably. There's the one deep ball shot that he missed to Devontae Smith in the third quarter, I believe, where Devontae Smith was wide open by about 10 yards and it would have been like a 90-yard touchdown easy. And Jalen Hurts just missed him completely, like overthrew it by like 5-10 yards. And I've been saying in all of my previews and game recaps that I'm not the biggest Jalen Hurts fan. I don't think he's a top 10 or even maybe top 15 quarterback. And while I certainly think that's more of me being an Eagles hater than, being objective, games like this make it hard to deny that statement. Jalen Hurts did not look like a very good quarterback in this game, and the Eagles offense as a whole was really, really struggling, and they've now lost 2 in a row. I know they're going up against the Vikings, who are coming off of bye, potentially having J.J. McCarthy back. If not, it's going to be the Carson Wentz show again. And I mean, I said last week they would go Giants, Viking, Giants, and they're probably pretty easy to bounce back, but now they've fallen to the Giants. So honestly, at this point, I don't really know because the Eagles just look incredibly underwhelming at the moment. And until they get rid of Kevin Patullo, their offensive coordinator, I don't think this is going to change because they just look so sluggish on offense, and their defense has been dealing with too many injuries and too much underperformance. Another one final note on the Eagles: Zadarius Smith, their leading pass rusher with I think 2.5 sacks, retired a couple days ago, and it's just making an already struggling defense, especially pass rush wise, even worse. Which I don't think I've seen a player who's leading a team in sacks, even if it's only with 2.5, to just straight up retire after like 6 weeks. Like I know Zadarius Smith isn't exactly young, but like I don't even know why or like what was going on, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. And someone else for the Eagles is going to have to step up because they don't have a Hassan Reddick or a Brandon Graham or a Josh Sweat anymore to really dominate the edge. They obviously have like guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in the middle, but on the edge they're kind of lacking at the moment, which I feel like for this first time in a good while, the Eagles have not had like a really key presence on the defensive end. So with that, we move on to the Sunday slate of games. We have another London game. This time the Broncos taking on the Jets. And to say this game was bad would be putting it lightly. It would be a generous statement to say this game was bad. This might have been one of the worst football games in the past decade. It was so the Broncos won 13-11, which should already show that it was pretty unique. Um, it was really, really bad. Well, the one good thing about it was that the Broncos defense was going absolutely insane. Uh, they were just, they were just embarrassing the New York Jets this entire time. Justin Fields could do nothing the entire game. He was just getting shredded behind the O line, getting sacked constantly. He was missing throws. Like, I think all the optimism that Jets fans had after week one, where Fields looked kind of decent against the Steelers, even though they lost, I think all that optimism's gone. They're 0-6 now. Fields does not look very good. He had this fun fact. He had, he had 45 total passing yards in this game. And because he was sacked 9 times, and since sack yardage counts against the passing yardage, where like, say you get sacked for a 5-yard loss, that will be a -5 to a quarterback's passing yards in the box score. Justin Fields finished with -10 net passing yards in this game, which I think is the lowest in since like 1978. You at home, so you sitting at home listening to this podcast, unless you played a game in the NFL this week, you had more passing yards than Justin Fields did this week, who played a full 60-minute game and nearly won, I might add. The Jets still almost won this game, which is the weirder part. Like, this was just such an offensive ineptitude on so many levels for both teams. I mean, the Broncos didn't look very good. I questioned Sean Payton's coaching decisions a lot of the time, and really his coaching philosophy when it comes to the offense. And this game was one of the more blatant examples, glaring examples, I'd say. There was a point, I think in the third or fourth quarter, the Broncos they had, I think, a 3rd and 10 on their own like 18-yard line. And Sean Payton decided to call a fullback draw out of shotgun for some ungodly reason. Like, if you're going to run it, why they didn't do it with J.K. Dobbins or R.J. Harvey, and instead went with a fullback, I have no idea. And why they also didn't just pass the freaking ball in the first place, I don't know either. For his sake, they did win eventually, but like, what is even going on? It was just sad. I'm sorry, England, you did not deserve this kind of football game. It was reminiscent of that Broncos Colts Thursday night game from I think like 2022, where it was like 12-7 was the final score, something like that. It was just, oh please, I never want to see the Broncos in a primetime game again, or like a non 1 or 4 o'clock game again, until they figure out how to work a functionable offense. Because, oh my goodness, this was bad. It was really bad. Jets are also 0-6 now. Broncos are 4-2. At this rate, I don't know if Aaron Glenn gets brought back for a second season, because the Jets just look like embarrassingly non-competitive. I get that Fields probably isn't, or almost certainly isn't, the answer at quarterback at this point, but like, they have a decent number of players who are like talented on both sides of the ball, especially on defense. They have a lot of players on the defensive side that are, pretty good. And Aaron Glenn, who is a defensive coordinator, I get that his defenses for the Lions weren't like the most spectacular things in the world, but like, he's supposed to be the defensive guy. And outside of this game, I mean, they're 0-6. So what? And like, not a like good looking 0-6 team either. So it's, I don't think Aaron Glenn's, unless like things go like from bad to really worse, I don't think Aaron Glenn's getting fired midway through the season, or like before season's end. But I don't right now. I don't see him lasting another season with how uninspired the Jets look. All right. Next up, we get to the 1 o'clock games, and first up, we'll talk about Cleveland Browns going into Pittsburgh to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. Browns were 1-4. Steelers were 3-1. They were coming off their bye. Browns. This was Dylan Gabriel's second start, and in my notes I had for this, I literally had two things written down compared to like the 6 or 7 that I do for like most of the other games. So the Steelers won 23-9 in a game that was just never close or even really interesting at all. Um, for so if listening at home for you, the audience, I don't know how many of you are like really in depth into like knowing how game plans work. I wouldn't say I'm the most like, in like I would know the ins and outs of all of like planning for a game. Like I'm no NFL coach. I'm not a coach for football, period. I'm not even that good at Madden. What I do know is that the Steelers defense is usually pretty decent against the pass. The Browns are starting a rookie quarterback in only his second career start, and they have a really good rookie running back in Quinshon Judkins, who has been kind of the focal point of the offense through through the first 5 weeks. Well, 4 weeks technically, because Judkins was suspended for anyway. He has been the focal point of the offense for however long he's been starting, essentially. I question you at home why Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns, thought it was a good idea to call or have Dylan Gabriel, again, who was making his second career start in a divisional matchup against a pretty tenacious defense, why he had Dylan Gabriel throw the ball 58 times and only ran it with Judkins like 14 times or something, or like not even with Judkins, but just ran the ball like 14 times. I don't understand the idea behind that. Like I get the Browns went down early, but it wasn't down by a lot. It goes over my head. I wish I could be paid millions of dollars to make that decision, because I feel like even I could, make a better decision than that. But I don't know. I'm not two-time coach of the year winner Kevin Stefanski, and maybe he saw something different. Maybe he's just trying to tank now. I don't even know at this point. The Browns just don't look very good. This was not a good game for Dylan Gabriel whatsoever. Judkins was non-existent. Of all people to get 2 sacks in this game with both Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, it was Jalen Ramsey, the cornerback for the Steelers, who got 2 quarterback sacks, which is, I don't think something like that is ever going to happen again, with like having 2 of the best edge rushers in the league playing in the game and a cornerback instead out sacking both of them. But I mean, hey, it worked for the Steelers. They were just dominating this whole game. And that's pretty much all I can say. For the Steelers, they're 4-1 now, and somehow in basically complete control of the AFC North, despite looking incredibly unimpressive. I mean, it's just that the AFC North has completely imploded, like in its entirety. And yeah, so I guess the Steelers are gonna make the playoffs at this rate and gonna host a playoff game. 9-8 Super Bowl. Here we go again. I mean, they might even go like 10-5 at this point, or like I don't know, like get 10 or 11 wins with how terrible their division is this year. I mean, part of it is that Baltimore is dealing with every injury under the sun, and also Zach Orr, and then Cincinnati has Joe Burrow injured again, or well, he's been injured. So yeah, sip of water here real quick for me. But yeah, the Steelers kind of have a cakewalk division at the moment. They're 4-1 and one of the top teams in the AFC for some reason. I don't even know at this point. Anyway, the Los Angeles Chargers went into Miami to take on the Dolphins. Chargers were 3-2 going into this game after coming off back-to-back losses to the Giants and Commanders. Dolphins were 1-4 going into this game, and it was actually a really close game for most of it. Which I was a little surprised. I mean, again, the Chargers, their issues are known where it's their defenses dealing with injuries and not the best performance overall, and their offensive line is just shredded at the moment. But even then, it's like they're definitely the better team, I would say. The Dolphins just have so many issues going on, but I mean, I think the silver lining for the Dolphins, even though they lost 29-27, it's like they at least played the Chargers close. I don't really think it's like you can get much out of it. Like it's like woohoo because they're 1-5 at this point, but like I don't know. It's I'm trying to find good things to say for the Dolphins to not be like, oh yeah, they're 1-5, they suck, but yeah, I mean they're 1-5 and they kind of suck. That's all I can say. The Chargers were also missing Quentin Johnson this game. He was dealing with an injury. And it took them a little bit to get going, but like really once the second half hit, they were playing a lot better. Tua threw, I think, 3 interceptions, and didn't look his best. Devon Achane actually had a really good game though. He was really the Dolphins offense this whole game, and was really keeping them in the game. Tua was finding him well enough, but when Tua was forced to throw it downfield, that was when he was really starting to struggle. And it caught up with him, especially towards the end of the game, where he basically threw a game-sealing interception late. And I mean, again, the Dolphins looked slightly better than they had before, but it's still a loss. So, and we had another clip of Tua in the post-game interview where he's calling out a lack of leadership and that like people aren't even showing up to players-only meetings. And then you get, I think it was Deshaun Hamilton, who's retired now, but former safety who played for the Dolphins for a bit. And he was like, oh yeah, by the way, it's Tua who's the guy who never showed up to meetings when I was there. So it's, I think the entire Dolphins franchise just needs a massive reset with how things are because it's just the culture there is just not working in the slightest. It's clear that the everything that like McDaniel and has built and whoever the Dolphins GM is, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Might be Chris Greer. I don't know for sure. But like everything built there and all the players there, just it doesn't seem to work. It does not seem like a functional football team, and there's a reason why they're 1-5. So I'm sorry, Dolphins fans. I wish I could be more positive, but I think you would agree with me that this season has not been it in the slightest. So next up is a much more interesting game, which I don't think people were expecting going into the season, but the New England Patriots going into the Superdome. I think it's the Caesars Superdome now in New Orleans to take on the Saints. Saints were 1-4 coming into this game. Patriots were 3-2. And the Patriots won 25-19 in a really entertaining game, I must say. Outside of the refs being just generationally bad, and surprisingly against the Patriots for once, like they were calling so many things against the Patriots in this game. But overall, it was a really entertaining game. The quarterback play especially was really fun. Drake May looks really good. It's the Saints, I wouldn't say are the toughest level of competition, and the Bills last week, kind of from what we see now, not the most tough competition on defense either. But even still, this is the development you want to see from Drake May. Like compared to, the start of the season where they're losing to the Raiders and committing 50 billion turnovers against the Steelers. This is a completely different Patriots team. They look a lot better overall. And Drake May looks fantastic. Keyshawn Boutte had a breakout performance. Demario Douglas also had a good performance at wide receiver. Stephon Diggs was pretty. Stat-wise, he wasn't the best, but like he had one big catch that was really good that got called back for a non-existent penalty, essentially. But I mean, I would like to see more Travion Henderson get involved in the offense, mostly because I have him on fantasy in one of my teams, and I would like to get him more involved so I can get more points. But like, overall, it's more like I'd be interested to see, getting him involved more. Like I get they have Ramondre Stevenson, but like we kind of know who Ramondre Stevenson is. He can flash a couple times, but more often than not, you got to worry about his fumbling issues. And I'd rather see more from Travion Henderson because this rookie running back class looks insane at the moment, and there's a good chance that he's going to be one of those guys. So yeah, Patriots 4-2. They look really good right now. They're also atop the AFCs at the moment. And as for the Saints, I mean, again, they're 1-5, and I think we all knew this was kind of a punt year. But what I will say, I've like after seeing a lot of stuff online and looking through some of the highlights and stuff and all that, and browsing stuff and seeing what I can, Spencer Rattler might actually not be too bad as a quarterback. I mean, is he starting caliber? I starting to come around to saying yes, actually. Um, he doesn't have a very good supporting cast around him, which certainly doesn't help. But he's not looked nearly as bad as he did last year. And like he's I think a fifth round quarterback from last year's draft. So it's like there's little to no expectations on him, and it's like you're kind of expecting him to fail almost. And I think that was kind of that's been my mindset for a while, where it's like I expect him to be bad, and if he isn't, it's a pleasant surprise. But I mean, like everything I've seen, especially this season, like he's no he's no Patrick Mahomes or anything like that, or even like Drake May. But I mean, he's solid. He's better than certainly some of the other quarterbacks out there in the league right now. Um, and I'd be interested to see like what the Saints do going forward in like later on in the season, and especially like the offseason and the next season, like if Rattler keeps developing into like a pretty serviceable starting quarterback, to see kind of what they do. Like if they try to keep him around and build around him, or just kind of use him as a bridge until they can find something else. But I mean, for a team that's been in QB purgatory ever since Drew Brees has left, having even someone to just kind of hold the gap in a really low point in their franchise at the moment is a pretty good thing to have at the moment. And I think they can probably going into this next draft with a high pick, unless they go on an insane run in the second half of the season. Um, they're I could see them looking elsewhere besides quarterback. Like they could go. I mean, they might go offensive line. I know they've invested heavily in the offensive line in the draft recently. They could go wide receiver to get someone other than Chris Olave to be catching passes, get like a more of a big body wide receiver, I would say. Um, but I mean, I don't pay like too much attention to like college football big boards and like upcoming drafts, especially this point in the season. So like I couldn't really tell you who's like the favorite for number one overall, but I would think that the Saints would start looking elsewhere besides quarterback in the draft coming up with how Rattler's been playing. I mean, they're still 1-5 and they don't look great, but I think it's a better 1-5 than I'd say the Dolphins are in at the moment. That's what I would say. So next up is the LA Rams going into Baltimore to take on the nearly dead Baltimore Ravens with how many injuries and they have. I mean, this is another game without Lamar, another game with like half their defense. And honestly, I think everyone was expecting this to be an absolute massacre. And the Rams did win pretty convincingly. It was only 17-3, but it was like it wasn't really ever close. Like the Ravens did technically have a lead in the first quarter. They were up 3-0. But it was just Cooper Rush is not the answer for backup quarterback. And I guess they have to turn to Tyler Huntley now, because Rush just he does not seem to be able to operate the offense whatsoever. And they aren't leaning on Derrick Henry enough, or just are like getting down too early where the Ravens offense can't like just use Derrick Henry the entire time to really get back in it because they're down too many scores early. Um, the one thing I can say about this game is that their defense probably played their best game of the season. Puka Nacua did go down with injury for a bit in this game. He did come back, but it was the Rams' offense certainly looked sluggish this go around, but they were pretty much in control the whole time. Their defense, especially, was balling out, and this is one where it was an injury-riddled team just not able to overcome it and losing to a solid team, even if the Rams didn't have their best performance. So the Rams are 4-2, and I mean they could play better games, but they got away with a win, and they can move on with a good record. Ravens are 1-5, tied with the worst start in the Harbaugh era with 2015, I believe. And yeah, I mean, for the Ravens, like if they get Lamar Jackson back, it's great. They might get him back this next week. I'm not quite sure, but they're in such a deep hole where I don't really know if they can claw out of it. Like they could. I still think there's a somewhat decent chance they make the playoffs just because I think they have too much talent on the roster, and like once they start getting back from injury, I think they can rattle off wins, and also they just had a really brutal start to the schedule. But I really don't think like I think they're if all the good happens and they're able to make it in the playoffs, I think they're a one and done at this rate. They just don't look, even when they have players healthy, they just don't look impressive all that much. Like their best game was really just against Buffalo, I would say. And even then they still lost that game. So I can't really say too much good about the Ravens. I get they're dealing with so many injuries, but like besides the injuries, they don't look very good. All right. Next up is the Arizona Cardinals going into Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Colts were 4-1 going into this game. Cardinals were 2-3, coming off that absolutely embarrassing choke job against the Titans. And this was one where I forget exactly when in the week, but it was pretty late, I think. And it was Kyler Murray went down with injury, so he was not playing in this game. And it was former Patriots, former Colts quarterback, and some other teams I know for sure. I think Washington as well. I'm pretty sure he played in Washington. But Jacoby Brissett, he got the start for Kyler Murray at quarterback for the Cardinals, and somehow he threw for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns, which was more than any game more yards than Kyler has thrown in any game this season, which is kind of sad. Actually, that's really sad. And not a great look for the Cardinals offense overall, that their backup quarterback is performing better than their starting quarterback through the air. They still lost the game. The Colts won 31-27, but this was a surprisingly close game throughout the entire time. I mean, the Colts had to actually come back from a deficit in the fourth quarter and win this game. But, I mean, they won it, and I mean, they look pretty good. I wouldn't say it was Daniel Jones' best game. Jonathan Taylor still looks absolutely incredible, and it's like him and Bijan Robinson for the Falcons. They are like 1-2 right now for offensive player of the year because they both just look absolutely insane running the football. And yeah, I mean, the Colts, it was much closer than I think they would have wanted, but even then, it's like it's a season where I don't think they were really expecting to be 5-1 at this point in the season at all. So they'll take wins where they can get them. And yeah, it was pretty nice for the Colts. One weird thing that happened was that 2 of their players got injured in pregame warmups, like for completely different reasons. One of them was, I think, their like backup tight end, or it was something along the lines of like their backup tight end was either the guy who got injured or accidentally caused the injury. But like he collided with another guy during pregame warmups, and the guy got a concussion because of it, or something like that. And then the other one was Anthony Richardson fractured his orbital bone by using the like stretch bands that you like use to like stretch out your legs and shoulders and stuff during pregame warmups. I don't know how you fracture your orbital bone with one of those, but he's on IR now, which is not good. um, I don't mean to laugh at an injury because obviously it's I would never want to have a fractured orbital bone, and I hope Anthony Richardson recovers quickly. But like, it's just the circumstances around it is like so bizarre that you just can't help but laugh. Um, anyway, speaking of injuries in this game, Marvin Harrison Jr. also went down with a concussion, which really sucks. I don't think he's like going long term or anything like that on IR. I don't even think he's going to go on IR, but like, it sucks for the Cardinals to lose him during the game for when they're already missing like James Conner as well. So their offensive attack is really limited. And even with that, Brissett still goes 320 yards through the air. I still don't understand how that happens. Um, but yeah, overall, it was a pretty solid game overall, and one where I mean we kind of know what the Cardinals are, and I kind of doubt that their coaching staff lasts through the end of the season with how uninspired they play. But I mean, hey, the Colts are 5-1, and they're like atop the NFL basically, which is crazy. Like the top four teams in the AFC conference are the Chargers, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Steelers. Or like four of the top teams basically are those four. And so it's 2007 all over again with how it is. Like you had Brady, Manning, Rivers, Roethlisberger before. Now it's Aaron Rodgers, Drake May, Daniel Jones, and Justin Herbert, as we all expected, essentially. It's absolutely crazy, and one of the many reasons why this season is just absolutely bonkers. Anyway. Moving on, the Seattle Seahawks, who were 3-2, went into Jacksonville to take on the 4-1 Jaguars, and the Seahawks won 20-12 in a game that wasn't really close, which was a little surprising. It was one where Jackson Smith-Njigba's also pretty quickly inserting himself into that Offensive Player of the Year category, where he's just having an insanely good season. Sam Darnold also looks really good now with the Seahawks. Like, I mean, he's still doesn't like misses some throws, but he's starting to look like that answer that the Seahawks have been looking for, a lot more so than Geno Smith. It was odd because it started out as kind of a defensive battle early, but then the Jags started to get some more rhythm going, but then they got stuffed for a little while, and then the Seahawks just exploded and really started just stunting on the Jaguars defense. Jaguars made a trade. I forget if I covered it last week or if it came out after, but they acquired Greg Newsome from Cleveland in exchange for their cornerback that I don't remember the name of, but it was basically a cornerback for cornerback swap with some picks in there. And Newsome got burnt in this game by Jackson Smith-Njigba for like a 60-yard touchdown, which was not a good way to start your season, basically, or start your career in Jacksonville. But yeah, overall, it was the Seahawks on both sides of the ball look pretty solid. This is definitely not a good game from Trevor Lawrence overall. And this is kind of my worry with Jacksonville, where it's like they can string together some wins, but overall they're like still are pretty rough around the edges, and against good teams they can really falter. And Trevor Lawrence is like, he certainly shows flashes here and there, but he still hasn't quite taken that next step, which in year 5 now is not good. I mean, there's Jags are still 4-2, and I do think that that I don't think they're going to be putting up these kind of stinkers every week, but it's still a little worrisome. It basically TLDR of my thoughts there. But yeah, they're both teams come out of this game 4-2, and I mean Seahawks. I think they actually have the inside track for the NFC West with how they're playing at the moment, but I don't know. We'll see. So after that, the Rico Dowdle revenge game, the Dallas Cowboys going into Carolina to take on the Panthers, and after his breakout performance last week, Rico Dowdle just decided to go for another 200 plus. I think it was like 230 total scrimmage yards and a touchdown. He was going absolutely insane this game. 239 actually. I was off by one. Now that I'm looking at the headline, the Panthers won 30-27 in a comeback win where it's. I keep seeing this like recurring tweet on my feed after like every week when the Panthers win. It's that it's a picture of Bryce Young like fading into Tom Brady, and it's like Bryce Young after his government mandated first quarter turnover basically, and it's like it's not entirely wrong. Like Bryce will just throw like the most or commit the most boneheaded turnover at the start of the game like every single time, and then just go on to have like an insane run in the second half. Like he will look like a completely different quarterback in the second half and especially in the fourth quarter. And I mean, it helps having suddenly like prime Barry Sanders on your team with Rico Dowdle now. I'm not going to say he's actually that, but like, and especially because it's the Cowboys defense and the Cowboys defense is hilariously bad at the moment. I say that next week they're going to hold Washington to like 3 points, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, anyway, the Cowboys defense was just really struggling the whole game, especially against Rico Dowdle. And the Panthers defense wasn't, playing great. I like Dak has actually looked pretty good this season, and he had another good season. George Pickens has been absolutely insane for the Cowboys. Like he's one of the top receivers in the league at the moment. This game alone, 9 catches, 168 yards, and a touchdown. So, I mean, he's with CeeDee Lamb out, he is absolutely feasting. It's just that the Cowboys need to score like 50 points a game to actually win. In this game, they did not. And so they fall to 2-3-1. Panthers are now 3-3 and look significantly better than even what they did like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm very pleased to see the Panthers' growth in this season, and I hope they keep it up. As for the Cowboys, like, I mean, they needed Micah Parsons. He would have been the answer to at least make this defense passable, but they have no pass rush. Their run defense isn't very good either. Their secondary is really bad. Like it's pretty much bad on every level for the Cowboys. So I don't really know what they can do to fix it. I mean, they can fire Matt Eberflus because he's not very good at his job. But other than that, I don't really know. So next up, the late afternoon games, I believe. The Tennessee Titans going into Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. And the Raiders won 20-10 in a game that was not really that interesting and kind of your typical Titans game outside of last week, where they had to have an okay defensive performance, especially on the defensive line. Jeffrey Simmons is, I wouldn't be too surprised if he gets dealt for a really high price at this trade deadline because he is one of the best defenders in football at the moment, and he is toiling away on a really bad Titans team. Cam Ward is getting ruined by this current coaching staff. Well, let me get to that in a sec, but Cam Ward needs a better environment around him to succeed because right now he is just wilting away in a really bad system. But to expand on that real quick, it was announced on Monday that Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach, was relieved of his duties. He was fired after going, I believe, 4-19 through his tenure as Tennessee head coach, which is not good in the slightest. Like that is all-time levels of bad winning percentage for a head coach, and they really should not have brought him back this season. And I like even after like 3 weeks ago, he should have been gone. At least he's gone now. And hopefully the Titans get better. I don't know. I think their interim head coach is going to be Mike McCoy, former Chargers head coach. And when I saw that on Twitter, all the Chargers fans in the comments were apologizing in advance to Titans fans because they had bad memories from Mike McCoy as their head coach back in the mid 2010s. So I don't know. It might need to be an offseason change for the Titans to really get going because right now it's they have a decent shot to be picking number one overall in back-to-back years at this point. I think that's all I could say. As for the Raiders, I mean, they won in a pretty underwhelming performance against one of the worst teams in the league. They're 2-4, so it's like I don't really know what I can tell you. They don't. I don't think Geno Smith is the answer. Answer. In turn, yeah. I don't think Geno Smith is the answer. Ashton Jeanty at least looks pretty good, but like they need a lot of changes to really thrive, and I don't really know what the Raiders can do at the moment. It's because they just have not been able to beat good teams whatsoever. Next up is the Joe Flacco-led Cincinnati Bengals going into Green Bay to take on the Packers. And Packers win 27-18. And for the Bengals, I mean, they at least played okay, like all things considered. It was one where it's like they weren't as embarrassed as I think people were expecting. I mean, the Packers were fine. They didn't look great, but they were fine. And it was like Flacco clearly took a little while to get going in this new system. I mean, he hadn't even been there for a full week. So it took him a little while to get going. He did have some decent throws in the second half. Jamar Chase had an insanely good touchdown catch in the fourth quarter. But overall, it was for the Bengals. I mean, they're 2-4, and I actually do think Joe Flacco is going to be better at quarterback than Jake Browning is, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many wins they're going to get with him, but they at least look like slightly better than they had before. Their defense also looked slightly better. They only gave up 27 points, so it's really just like they kept it close for a little bit, and it wasn't the worst thing in the world, essentially. I think Trey Hendrickson did get injured in this game, though, which sucks immensely. I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of turning into a lost season for the Bengals, but they at least looked slightly competitive in this game compared to how it had been under Jake Browning. As for the Packers, I mean, it wasn't a great win, but it was a win. It was a 9-point win, and I mean they're back to they're 3-1-1. They're coming off a win after that tie 2 weeks ago because they had their bye last week. So it's yeah. I mean, I don't know really what else I can say about the Packers. It was fine. Yeah, I think that's what I can say. It was fine. Just win next week and you'll probably forget about it. So the last late afternoon game was the San Francisco 49ers going into Tampa Bay, which is a little surprising because I figured for a late afternoon game they would have the other way around where, you know, the West Coast team gets the home start, but instead it was in Tampa Bay. And the Buccaneers won 13-19. And this is one where Mac Jones got the start again, but it definitely was not his best performance. He threw 2 interceptions this game. Again, there's like he basically had no one besides McCaffrey on his offense to reliably throw to. Kendrick Bourne has been his main target, and so the 2021 New England Patriots connection is alive and well in the 2025 49ers, but it's overall one where the Niners just didn't have enough firepower on the offense to really keep up, and the injuries also get significantly worse for the Niners because Fred Warner had a nasty ankle injury and he's out for the season. So the top two players on the Niners defense, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, both done with season-ending injuries by week 6, which is that really sucks. I feel really bad for Niners fans at this point because it's like, how many years of just debilitating injuries are they going to have to suffer through? It's just kind of insane. And yeah, it kind of sucks for them. Like they're still 4-2, but I don't know how much longer they're going to be at with a winning record just with how many injuries they have. I do think they have George Kittle coming back this week, which is good for them. But even still, I don't know for sure. As to the Buccaneers, I mean, Baker Mayfield's just so much fun to watch. Like he's actually insane, and he's literally throwing to his like fifth string wide receiver at this point because like everyone else is injured. Emeka Egbuka went down with an injury. I think a hamstring injury that's keeping him out for what looks to be a few weeks. And their other rookie wide receiver, Tez Johnson, turned into like Deshaun Jackson, like prime Deshaun Jackson. He had made this absolutely insane touchdown catch where he's like leaping into the air with his arms outstretched and catches the ball on his fingertips as Baker like drops it out there on like a 50-yard pass. It was insane. It was like, I don't know how the Buccaneers just managed to find like every single good wide receiver in existence, but they just do. And yeah, it was just, the Bucs are really good. They're 5-1 and like they're good 5-1. And Baker Mayfield is again he's my MVP front runner, and he just looks, he's just so entertaining to watch. Even with all the injuries that the Buccaneers are having on their offense with offensive line and skill position, Baker Mayfield is just putting the team on his back, and he's like at this point motivated just by pure spite. Like he is fueled by anger and hatred towards everyone in existence, and it's a glory to behold. It's just incredible. So after that, the Sunday night game was the Detroit Lions, who were 4-1 going into Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, who were 2-3. And according to Chris Collinsworth, the greatest 2-3 team of all time, which I wouldn't necessarily say that, but it's Chris Collinsworth. He loves to hype up the Chiefs. And he was correct in this game, hyping up the Chiefs. They won 30-17 in one where this was definitely one where the Chiefs looked like the Chiefs of old. Like their defense was playing a lot better overall. They were doing a good job to defending the Lions, especially in and around the red zone. I mean, there was one where the Lions had a touchdown in, I believe, the first quarter that got called back on a pretty iffy illegal formation call that I guess like by a technicality it should have been called, but like it really didn't matter because like it was kind of going against the rule of like what they were saying. And anyway, the rest in this game were certainly a conversation because the Chiefs had 0 penalties called on them, and there definitely should have been some penalties called. But I do think this was one where the Chiefs kind of deserved to win regardless, because especially on the offensive side of the ball, it looked a lot more like the Chiefs offense of old, where it's like they aren't the most flashy team in existence, but they're one that just like consistently grinds down the opposing defense and just finds ways to convert first downs, like annoyingly consistent at just driving the ball downfield on a consistent basis. And I think it was Pat Mahomes' I think it was his best game of the season so far. Travis Kelce had a pretty solid game. And yeah, I mean, this was one where I'm still a little iffy on the Chiefs just because they have looked very underwhelming so far this season as a whole. But if they keep playing like this, I think we'll definitely see them back in the playoffs, and potentially back in the Super Bowl, which, would be a little annoying. There was also a pretty decent fight at the end of this game where Brian Branch got into it with Mahomes, and more so Juju Smith-Schuster after, the main inciting incident was like right at the end of the game, or like a couple plays before. Juju basically cheap shot at Brian Branch by shoving him in the back. while the play was basically developing elsewhere. But eventually, after the final kneel down, Branch basically took a swing at Juju, or like an open palm swing at his helmet, and it got into like this big scuffle. And I mean, I certainly get like why he was frustrated, because I think it was like both that the Chiefs were talking trash and getting away with basically everything in this game. I don't agree with necessarily like retaliating in the way he did, but I certainly I can see why he did it. He is getting suspended one game. I think he's appealing, but I doubt his appeal will go through. So unfortunate for the Lions going into next week, but yeah, that was the only other kind of like major interesting thing that happened in this game. So the Monday night games, there are two of them. Apologies for the yawn, that kind of came out of nowhere for some reason. The first was the 4-1 Buffalo Bills going into the 2-2 Atlanta Falcons, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. And this is one where, surprisingly enough, the Falcons won in a pretty definitive fashion. Bijan Robinson. I keep saying Bijan. I know he's like said it's actually Bijan, but it's it always takes me a bit. But Bijan Robinson and Drake London had insanely good games. Drake London, 10 catches, 158 yards and a touchdown. Robinson, 19 carries, 170 yards and touchdown, and that's not including his own passing statistics. Michael Penix Jr. looked pretty solid overall. I wouldn't say it was his best game, but like overall it was pretty solid. And it was one where the Falcons offense was just cooking on all cylinders for a good chunk of the game, especially early on. They kind of slowed down in the second half, but it was one where they were overall pretty nice. And on the flip side, the Bills, they started out hot and then fizzled out pretty quickly. Josh Allen just does not have a lot of help on the offensive side of the ball. And then their defensive side of the ball is really injured and really struggling when they're not injured. The Falcons were just kind of moving all over them the whole game, and the Bills were, and they were 4-0, but all of their wins were against pretty underwhelming teams. So I actually don't quite know what to think of the Bills at this point in the season, because they've looked really underwhelming the past two games. And I don't know if that's just a fluke or if it's a trend, but yeah, it should be interesting. It's one where I definitely still think the Bills are going to make the playoffs, just because I think Josh Allen is too good. But I don't know, I'm a little shaky on it. They're definitely not Super Bowl favorites anymore, I would say, with how they played over the last couple weeks. And so I don't know why I'm doing it again. The final game of the week was the Chicago Bears coming into Landover, Maryland to take on the Washington Commanders. And I don't want to talk about this game. I really don't want to talk about this game. The Bears won 25-24 on a last-second field goal by, of all people, Jake Moody. Because Cairo Santos, their normal kicker, was injured, so they picked up Jake Moody, and he was so just incredibly inconsistent. And this game he goes 5 for 6 with his one miss being a blocked field goal that was from like 48 yards. Because why would that make any sense? I mean, the Bears didn't look amazing on offense. Outside of DeAndre Swift, he had a really good game. Commanders defense just could not stop him whatsoever. Caleb was fine. He was missing a decent number of throws, especially long. But he didn't turn the ball over, which was something that the Commanders could not do. Commanders fumbled twice, and Jaden threw a really bad interception in the red zone on a ball I've like pretty much never seen him throw, on like a read that was, it was a tight window, but if he got zip on the ball, it would have gotten through to Debo for a touchdown. And he just threw it late and not with a lot of zip, and it was just a really easy interception that just took a ton of momentum out of the Washington's hands. They had a fumble on the drive before that by Bill Krosky-Merritt that was caused by Montez Sweat. It was, I'd say, more of a really good play by the defender rather than just a fumble. And just, it was another game where Washington put themselves in a hole early, and unlike last week against the Chargers, they just could not claw out of it in the slightest. Actually, well, That's not entirely true. They did eventually take the lead, but it was more like they weren't able to take and keep the lead, and really put away the Bears. They just it was so frustrating to watch. Um, and it was one where a big talking point going in was that the Bears had the worst rush defense, or one of the worst rush defenses in football, and the Commanders were one of the best rushing offenses. And it was like the complete opposite, basically, or like because it was the Commanders' defense, rush defense, that was just garbage, and the Bears' rushing attack was going insane. And the Commanders were kind of just it was so bad. I'm just so not happy about it. There was one big play in the fourth quarter where the Commanders were driving. They had the ball. It was like 4 or 5 minutes left, and they're in plus territory. And it was a third and like 5, maybe. It might have even been 3rd and 1. I think it might have been 3rd and 1. And of course, they don't line up in a jumbo formation. They don't stick Jaden under center. They line up in shotgun or the pistol or whatever, like not behind center basically. And they run it. Well, they try to run a draw play basically to or a handoff to Bill, and it was really rainy, and Jaden just never was able to secure the ball, and they fumbled. And then Chicago got it, never gave it back, kicked the game-winning field goal eventually off that turnover, and it was just. I don't understand why Cliff doesn't like want Jaden under center, or like why they don't run like a jumbo package for short yardage. And like I get usually like botch snaps are pretty rare, and that was one where it's like the Commanders do usually thrive on 3rd and shorts with the option because of Jaden's mobility. But it's like in that kind of scenario, I'd rather have a more like I think that snapping under center is more reliable than snapping to the pistol or shotgun. And I just don't understand. Commanders really could use Terry McLaurin back as well. He's been out with a hamstring injury or a quad injury, one of the two, for the past couple weeks, and yeah, I'm just gonna not talk about it anymore. I'm just so disappointed with the Commanders in this game. It was such an easy win that they just completely just threw down the drain. Um, yeah, that was oh my god. Yeah, that was such a horrible way to end the week for football. I was very upset. I still am very upset. Hopefully the Commanders can bounce back against the Cowboys next week. I don't know for sure, but hopefully it will happen. Anyway, that was week 6. Overall, it's pretty solid. And yeah, pretty wacky as a whole. But yeah, that's kind of been this season. I think, well, my next plan was probably going to be the follow up to the Three Houses story by doing my character analysis, or like my talking about the characters. But I have a lot of stuff going on this weekend, so I probably will not be able to get to record it. So instead, most likely what the next episode is going to be is just going to be the week 7 recap next Tuesday. That is most likely my plan, unless something changes. But yeah. So I hope you tune in next week for week 7, and hopefully I'll be in a better mood after the Commanders hopefully beat the Dallas Cowboys next week, but we shall see. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah. I don't know where that came. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you tune in again. This has been Henry with a play-by-play review.